please welcome on stage Mr. Kunal Bahl, who is the co-founder of Snapdeal and Titan Capital, founder of AceVector Group, and this conversation, again, is going to happen with Ayesha Faridi. Ayesha, over to you.
Kunal, thank you for your time today. And I'm quite excited because all the conversation today has been around tech and AI. And you believe that the next India is not a decadal, but a techadal opportunity. So let's first start with that. What do you think the new India or the emerging India is going to look like 5 to 10 years from now?
Firstly, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here. Everyone tends to always ask what will change in India in the next 10 years or 25 years as we get to or 20 years as we get to Viksit Bharat. And I always respond saying, what will not change? Everything will change. And likely change for the better. Now, if you look at, let's say, everyone compares to the US, right? Like, because they're farther along in their journey as an economy than we are. About 2.5% of their market cap, listed market cap, about 25% of their listed market cap is new age companies, like tech companies. In India, that is only 2.5%. Right? So out of our $5 trillion economy, only 150 billion is the market cap of listed new age tech companies. It is but obvious that as in the next 10 years, India gets to a 15 trillion market cap of all the listed companies, 8 to 10% should be at least the new age companies, right? It is very fathomable and which would take us to $1 trillion plus. So I sometimes feel that we get too caught up in the here and now, like what's today's stock market doing or yesterday or last year or what is the projection for next year. If you just zoom out and do an altitude shift, you will see that over the next 10 years, there is just going to be companies after companies that will get listed in the Indian, from the new age economy. We will have not probably one company which is 100 billion or 200 billion or 300 billion like the US. We will likely have maybe 5 companies which are 50 billion. We'll probably have 20, 30 companies which are 10, 20 billion. And we may have dozens of companies. We probably already do. We are probably getting close to a dozen companies which are north, or more than a dozen companies which are north of $1 billion or a few $1 billion. So the potential, the headroom for growth for the Indian tech companies is immense, and we're just getting started.
Interestingly, you gave an example of what the US is at currently. Other economies have had that moment when tech sort of stopped supporting the economy and became the economy. Is India at that inflection point right now as you look at it?
Look, there are a few things, few tailwinds that are happening in India at the same time. One is that, consumption is formalizing, where thanks to demonetization, UPI, etc., consumption that was largely happening in cash is becoming formalizing. It's showing up in the P&Ls of businesses, right, and the cash flows of businesses. The financialization of small businesses is happening, which earlier was they had to borrow money at exorbitant rates of interest. And thirdly, there is a digitization of the entire infrastructure that is happening. The sum total of all of these three things is actually leading to the rapid adoption of tech businesses and their products and services in India, which has never happened before. Because structurally, some of these things, these elements didn't exist up till probably like 5-7 years ago. And so it is no surprise that we are now seeing Indian new age companies that up till a few years ago, people were saying, will they even make it? Will they even survive? Is this a bubble, etc., to now being celebrated companies, part of the Nifty 50 in many cases. This was unfathomable.
Actually, just one as of now.
Well, it always starts with one. But it is only a matter of time. There'll be more than one.
That's the thing that you the point that you were making earlier, that India has been known as a consumption economy. We always talk about the demographic advantage and so many more people to consume over here. That tech as of now is very consumption linked. How soon before we get our own IPs? How soon before India starts making its own LLM?
Well, we are at it. I think the government is leaving no stone unturned, and we have the AI summit next week in Delhi, and there'll be, I'm sure, a lot of big announcements that will happen there. A lot of global luminaries from the AI landscape are coming. Look, I think we tend to sometimes get obsessed with only one layer in the AI stack. When will India have its own LLM? We'll get there. But there are so many other layers, right? Which is the infra stack, obviously the model layer, and then what is mostly talked about in the Indian context is the application layer. At least my belief is, and I already see that, like we've been investing in a lot of similar, AI application layer companies. They're building extraordinary solutions of global competitiveness.
Give me an example when you
I'll
say.
give you an example.
Huh.
So, a lot of people want to build very sexy AI apps because they, video creation,
so
photo
cool.
creation,
Yeah.
etc. I feel the value lies in building for relatively boring industries, right? Because not many people want to build for that. I'll give you an example. There's a company called ContraVault. We're investors in that company. What they are doing is using AI to make sense of tenders, right? Tenders as a space, as you know, is complicated. Like these tenders run into thousands of pages. There's a lot of inconsistency in the tenders. The guy who wrote the tender oftentimes doesn't know what was between page 5 and page 5,000, understandably. So they are using AI to interpret tenders, identify tenders, apply to tenders, track tenders. That is a great use case of AI. Excellent use case. Because when you take a tender, which is 5,000 pages, and feed it into a, name your favorite, AI app, you are going to get a garbage response. Context is important. And that's where companies from India will emerge who have contextual AI apps that are built for the world. So that is just, you asked for one example, I gave you one example. There are hundreds of such companies right now being built in India.
But how long or how soon before they reach mass scalability like a Zomato, Swiggy, Policy Bazaar, AI and tech platform companies as we know them today?
Sometimes we try to compare apples and oranges. They are not the same thing, right? A company whose revenue is measured in terms of number of meals they sell or number of phones they sell should not be compared to a company that is selling software, right? I feel, notwithstanding that, the cohort of companies that are building AI applications out of India, cumulatively, my sense is over the next few years will be generating billions of dollars of revenue. It seems small today, but everything seems small at one point in time in India. I remember there was a time 10, 15 years ago, people said e-commerce will not take off in India. Why would anyone buy anything online in India? Because Indian consumers like to touch things. Yeah. And they started buying mobile phones, and people say, oh, it's a standardized box. Of course, it's easy. You know what a Samsung phone is, whether you buy it online or offline. Fine. Then they said, but they will never buy clothes. They started buying clothes. They're like, oh, fine, clothes is fine. They'll never buy shoes. They started buying shoes, and then they said, they'll never buy cosmetics. You have to put it on your face. They started buying cosmetics. Now nobody questions whether these
happen online
yes,
or not.
I think we will always continue to be surprised at the ingenuity of Indian entrepreneurs and the acceptance and acceptiveness of Indian customers to new solutions.
That's great. The opportunity is there. Where's the gap?
Capital. I feel we still don't fully appreciate the dearth of capital we have in our country to fuel the innovation we feel we are capable of building, but are not building yet or have not built yet. We will always feel, we come from a very frugal mindset as a business community, right? Because given the trajectory of our country post-independence, we made obviously great ground. We went from almost We used to be top 2 GDP in the world for 1700 years, from AD 1 to AD 1700. Then for 350 years, we went in the doldrums with the invasions. And then after 75 years of independence, we are top 3 again, or almost top 3 again. But, I don't think we fully appreciate how much capital will be needed to build world-beating tech companies out of India. Last year, Indian startups raised $10 billion. Comparatively, the US startups raised $300 billion in 1 year, order of magnitude of 30x. Just today morning, Anthropic announced raising $40 billion, right? So I think the government is cognizant of that. They've launched this 1 lakh crore RDI fund. It is a lot. By Indian standards, like $11-12 billion fund is a lot. But we need a lot more than that. We need to be okay with the concept of there will be some wastage along the way of building world-beating tech companies out of India. And we need to make peace with it.
The next world-beating tech company, will it be a startup as we know it right now, or the traditional IT companies as we have known them will be able to adapt?
I know it's very topical given what's happening in the markets right now, but I wish I knew the answer. If I were making a bet in terms of where would the next very valuable companies be created, new companies, I should say. There'll be existing companies that will adapt very well and leverage AI. I don't call them new companies. I feel companies at the intersection of consumption and AI in India over the next 10, 15 years will build immensely valuable businesses.
On that note, thank you so much for that amazing insight into what India's next decade is going to look like.